Hey, good evening, and welcome to the 24th edition of Off the Cuff Rocked On Detroit Lions. It's a solo mission tonight. Not what we were expecting, but as we see the constant changes and issues that happen with our favorite NFL teams, we just have some issues here tonight. Andy B can't be with us tonight, so he's helping some family members out, and it's a good place for him to be, right? Always helping out your family. So wishing him well. Wish he could be here. So we're going to try to get through tonight's episode without Andy and his wonderful questions. And hopefully we'll get some good questions coming into the chat tonight. And we'll see how long this podcast goes. We'll see if I can talk for a straight hour, which I haven't done in a while. So, all right, y'all. I'm glad you guys are with me. And we've got quite a bit to get to. And I think first up is what's going on with the Detroit Lions injuries and timeline for some of these players to come back. What does it all mean? Does it really matter at this point? And the answer is yes and no. So second-year wide receiver Jameson Williams was injured, pulled up, kind of grabbing the back of his hamstring in the last practice versus the Jags. And according to Dan Campbell at the press conference the following morning, he should be out for the remainder of the preseason. Does it really matter? Not really when it comes to an injury factor and a timetable to get him back. But again, does it really matter? 100% yes, it does. And the reason why is Jameson has not had the ability to practice with the team and go through the game type situations. Yes, he got in 6 games last season, less than 90 snaps on the entire season is that's a glorified full game, heavy game, maybe 2 games worth of snaps in the regular season, especially for somebody that is considered to be our number one wide receiver, or our number one deep threat, at least not number one wide receiver. So it does matter. Jameson needs to get all the bugs out, all the kinks out. He's had a case of the drops now for a few weeks. His route running started to get a little bit better, again, because he's practicing and he's able to get the reps in the game and go through the game, situations and have things thrown at him, that he's not going to see in practice. The only benefit that Jameson has had this season is he's had a chance to go through the pre-camp OTAs, the mini camps, and a good portion of training camp, where he was able to get action in at least 2 joint practices. Memory doesn't serve me good right now to last week if he was held out due to an injury for one of the practices with the Giants. Matter of fact, I know he didn't play in one of the, or practice in one of the days, which was the 29th, because he was off the side of the field when I was there playing catch with Randall L. But see, it does matter, and it is concerning. And I think that's the next point I want to get to is, Dan Campbell's body language during the press conference, and kind of the feeling that I got was heavy frustration. Dan is not a happy man right now with Jameson Williams, and I'm going off of body language. I haven't had a conversation with Dan Campbell, but with all my years in experience in sales and learning psychology, body language tells you a lot. And Dan does give off quite a bit of body language during his press conferences. It depends on how many coffees he's had or if he's dealing with allergies that day. He's always rubbing or touching something, and those are usually the telltale signs that you're looking for body language. But he explicitly was, and visibly was upset, did not want to answer the questions, kind of gave shady answers, but under no certain terms did Dan Campbell seem like he wasn't worried, or that maybe now the writing is finally on the table that Jameson's season is severely impacted by this suspension, and they weren't able to get the body of work out of Jameson that they were hoping to before he has to exit the team facility. They don't even know if Jameson can get treatment. The answer is an immediate no, because that's what the rules say. He can't be anywhere near the facility. So if he has, an injury that needs treatment right now, he cannot get treatment from the team doctors or the team therapists, and he's going to have to do that outside of Allen Park. I know that Dan had said during the press conference that they're looking into that situation to see if there's any exceptions that can be made, and who knows? Who knows if we'll even hear about it? But I would hope that we get some more answers, next week when Dan Campbell comes back to the mic. Well, he'll be back on the mic, of course, after the game or after this weekend. But so I really feel like the body language was telling. Again, to kind of recap this whole injury thing, Jameson is definitely out for the rest of the preseason. Most likely won't see him back at all until week 7. And he's missing a lot of good time. He's missing a lot of reps. And mental reps only get you so far. You really have to get out on the field and get that muscle memory going. And that's what he's going to miss. And that's the biggest part of the game. I know there's been a few questions to players this preseason. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was visibly upset at Tim Twentyman when he asked him about, being back at practice. And his response was, I never missed practice. I was there every day. Well, he was there, and he did get his mental reps in. The difference is C.J. Gardner-Johnson's proven it on the field. He's got many years of experience. Jameson is entering, his second season. He's barely 2 years into the NFL. He has 6 games under his belt, 90 snaps, and has hardly gotten through any practices with his quarterback. So that's the problem. So when we talk about Jameson in a negative light, it's because these are the issues that we're seeing that are getting stacked in front of Jameson. People say that, hey, he's going to be fine. And, he's going to prove everybody wrong. Well, we really hope that he does. But we know one thing's for sure. The level of competition in the NFL, it's not college. The worst defensive back that Jameson is going to face in the NFL was the best defensive back in college. They're all great. And don't kid yourself. There's a very slim margin between a lot of these cornerbacks and safeties between making the team and not making the team. That's how high of a level or high of a bar, the competition that's in the NFL. So these reps are very important. Moving on into our docket tonight is I wanted to recap a little bit of training camp and joint practice, from this week. I was out at practice on Thursday and got a chance to send some tickets away to some of our followers and subscribers to our YouTube. So if you have not done that yet, if you guys have not taken a chance to click the link tree in a lot of our bios and a lot of our posts, please do. It's not some scammy, spammy link. It's just a very uniform and consistent way for us to keep all of our links together, and it's very organized. You can visit the new villainsquad.store. A lot of the new designs are up, and everybody can take advantage of 25% off right now just by putting Lions Win. Put Lions Win in your checkout cart. Enter the code Lions Win at villainsquad.store, and you get 25% off your entire order. It's only good, A, while supplies last, or B, the first 50 customers or supporters will get that discount. I've got one of the Detroit Lions grit t-shirts on tonight, and you won't find these designs anywhere else. If you do, let me know, because I'd like to send them a letter. One more recap about the injuries here. When Williams exited the joint practice session, I could only imagine what was going through everybody's mind yet again. Jameson Williams, another injury, another problem. It's just it's deflating. You want to see this kid win. You want to see this Lions team win. And I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to do just that, with or without Jameson. They did it last year. They're going to do it again this year. But anyway, we're going to get off of that. Enough of J-Mo. Recapping the training camp and kind of what I saw at practice, I was really hoping to see more out of the defense on Thursday. And for whatever reason, when I'm out there, the defense is always on the far side of the field, closer to the building. And I'm on the other side watching the offense in the beginning of practice. And then I'll slide over to the other side and check out the defense. But they're always down at the other end when I'm getting my chance to take notes. And there's really nowhere to stand or, get a good view until we get a media credential. So we did our best. But man, I saw Hutchinson get through on a couple of plays. Like I mentioned in my video during the week, it was like cutting butter with a hot knife. He just sliced right through the offensive lineman and got back in a hurry. And for me, that was it was good to see. It was good to see that he was able to continue doing what he's known for. But then the other side of that is there was a few plays where he dropped back in coverage or slid out to cover the flat. And things are a lot different this season with this new gap coverage scheme that they're utilizing. So I'm excited to see how it's going to benefit Hutchinson. I'm really excited to see how it's going to benefit the linebackers. And for me, it's pretty simple. If the defensive linemen on the front are now covering a gap and a half, that is less of a responsibility for the linebackers and creates and promotes more of an opportunity for the linebackers to be in free space, to be able to attack, the ball and the ball carrier, the quarterback. They're in attack mode versus react mode. And to me, I think that makes a big difference for any defense, that you're not playing on your heels, you're playing on your toes. It's also, giving this defense a new look from the secondary's perspective. They can bring, 5 defensive backs in now. They can bring an extra guy up in the box, which they really won't need to do. So in a lot of cover 3 situations, you have an extra man up in the box. And because they're covering a gap and a half, they're not going to need that anymore. So I just feel like this new scheme, it fits this team better, and they're launching it this year. So yeah, it will take some time for them to really ingest it and be able to run with it and play faster, if you will, or more free. But I don't think it's going to take long. Matter of fact, from what I've seen and the articles that I've read and the tape that I've watched and the clips that I've watched, I feel like they're playing fast, and I feel like they're kind of playing, like they're getting it, like they're not having to relearn something all over again. They just added an element to this defensive scheme, and they're running with it. So my camp update isn't really much more than I got to see Teddy B in his first practice, or my first practice, seeing Teddy B, and the guy's he's a pro. I mean, there's nothing else to say about the guy. He's a true pro. He's a super nice guy. He speaks well. He's just, what a better teammate to have than Teddy B. Let's just put it that way. He's a consummate professional. And when I seen him on the field interacting with the coaches, with the players, even with the Jaguars team coaches and players, you could tell that there was an element of respect for Teddy. And it goes both ways. He gives it and he gets it. And when I saw him get in practice and take some snaps, first pass, man, was a strike. His corner throws, all on point. And I know he's going to be running a little bit of a vanilla scheme, but that's only until he learns the verbiage, like he alluded to in his press conference, that the verbiage is changed, which is good. You don't want your offense to have the same verbiage as any other offense out there, because defenses pick that up. And matter of fact, we saw that a couple of seasons ago, and our offensive coordinator kind of hung us out to dry, where opposite teams knew exactly what plays we were calling because they were using the same verbiage as before. So, and that was the Matt Patricia era. Everything was easy to see and easy to scope, and they were able to figure it out. And that's why the Lions are getting their butts kicked. So having new verbiage makes a big difference. It's going to make other defenses really have to work hard to figure out what we're doing. Like Teddy said, the concepts are, primarily the same. Excuse me. But the verbiage is different, which is going to make the difference for him. And it's going to make the difference for how this offense is able to operate when they're running some of the similar looks that offenses do run. So he was able to get in early into practice, get some snaps, and he played well. So that was really encouraging. Why is his signing important? That was the other part of practice that I wanted to look at, was Sudfeld. How does he bounce back from starting the preseason game out with an interception? And, Sudfeld looked fine in practice. He looked better against the Jags than he did against the Giants, which to me makes no sense because the Jags have a much better defense. but he looked fine. He looked like he picked right up, where he kind of left off the preseason game and was making some good throws. But I don't trust Sudfeld now. After a couple of days in practice, watching him put balls everywhere on the ground, high, low, left, right, and just really holding the ball and not making quick, snappy decisions, we're going to get that from Teddy. So it's very clear now as to why the quarterback 2 signing was so important. It's just Sudfeld's, he's just not, he's definitely not the same caliber of an athlete as Teddy Bridgewater. He definitely doesn't have the game knowledge and experience like a Teddy Bridgewater. He doesn't have the arm like a Teddy Bridgewater. And we needed somebody to be able to step up and take this quarterback 2 position to help lead this team and, work with the guys and be a mentor and be that backup just in case, something does happen to Goff. A few other things I wanted to talk about tonight is, why is the NFL preseason seem to be changing? And what do I mean by that? The off season never used to encompass a lot of joint practices. And a few years ago, when the NFL decided to go from 4 preseason games to 3, and then add a 17th game on the schedule, there was a shift that kind of started at that point. We started to see more joint practices. The Lions really never utilized it. They started to, under the Matt Patricia era, that they started a few joint practices. Now the Lions have 2 different teams in, this year, 4 practices, joint with the Giants and then with the Jags, 2 apiece. And I feel like the preseason games have now changed to put all of the rookies in and put all the UDFAs in longer and get a better look at the guys that, have those questionable abilities, or maybe you're on the fence on somebody and you really need to see him perform. But I look at it from another perspective too, and that's, we're not doing cuts right now. By now we would have already been going through the first round of cuts, and the NFL doesn't start cuts and end cuts until August 29th. So every team is getting, a couple extra weeks with all of their rookies and UDFAs, and they're putting them all in for, roughly 85-90% of the snaps for preseason, if not really 95% of the snaps, because the starters aren't suiting up. And that brings me to my next point, is who's playing this weekend? Well, we already know that the Lions have decided to sit the majority of their starters, if not all of them, and even a couple of key rookies are not going to be suiting up for this game. So I would expect those rookies have earned their spot, whether they're first team or second team players, or they're obviously on the roster. And the Lions are going to be smart here. They want to protect the season. They could care less about preseason. They want to get the guys the reps that they need and deserve, which they're doing with joint practice. They want to keep the guys healthy. They want to reduce injuries and exposure, and they want to preserve the season, which is, I feel it's a smart move. Would we love to see the starters, at a preseason game? Absolutely. Do fans pay for tickets to see their team play? They do. So maybe the NFL needs to drastically reduce the price of preseason tickets, make it a uniform cost across the board, because if they're not going to see the starters, I feel like you're going to get less support. Now, there was a huge amount of support at the first game. Over 60,000 fans had shown up, and that's phenomenal. But I feel like they wanted to see the starters play too. But I feel like if they really knew what was going to happen this season, and if our outlook was, we didn't play the starters, but we finished, 12-5, made the playoffs, and got a, first round bye, I think that everyone would be okay with that we didn't play the starters. But we don't know what the season's going to look like. And we're hoping that it's going to be great. All signs are pointing to that, as long as we can keep everybody healthy. A little bit of roster moves today. Denzel Mims was waived, injured due to his injury, so the Lions gave him an injury settlement. Detroit was hoping that the former New York Jet could provide an additional weapon for Goff and find a way on this team. But unfortunately, the training camp injuries kind of forced the Lions to look in a new direction, and so they brought in Jason Moore. I don't know much on Jason Moore at this point. What I can tell you is what I've pulled up. Oh, I lost it. I had a little piece here on Jason Moore. I'll have to come back to that. But at any rate, Jason Moore is definitely going to be competing, with the likes of Maurice Alexander, Chase Cota, Dylan Drummond, for that final spot on the roster. And now that I have to revamp, my early preseason predictions on the roster, Chase Cota and Dylan Drummond now have a big opportunity with Denzel Mims being waived. It doesn't mean that Mims won't come back. It doesn't mean that the Lions won't reach back out to him, after he recovers from his injury. He does hit the waiver wire. So for any team to be able to go out and pick him up, I'm not real sure how that's going to work with the injury settlement or how long they have to wait. But the Lions could potentially target Mims again, if a need arises. And look, if he was healthy, I really feel like he would have made this roster. He was playing well. It's just injury bug sometimes creeps up on you, and we're seeing that with JMO. So preseason is changing. I feel like the preseason is now going to be heavily regarded from here on out to have joint practices and to put all of your UDFAs and all of your rookies in for the entire preseason, lineup for all the games and get a longer look at some of these guys so that you can get a better understanding of, who's really on this roster. Practice only offers you so much. You go against the same guys in practice every single day and you kind of figure each other out. And by then it's, you're kind of just going through the motions. You're still fighting, you're still scrapping, you're still getting after it, you're still competing, you're still trying to earn your way onto the team. But things do get a little bit easier when you go up against the same guys every single day. So I do like the different competition that the Lions are able to bring in. So we won't see any starters tomorrow. It sounds like it's just a guess, but I'm going to say Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch will all sit tomorrow. And Sam Laporta will probably sit as well. We'll see the balance of the rookies and the UDFAs in, though, for a long stretch of this game. Are we going to win or lose? I don't know. The Jags are definitely set and ready for a big battle against the Detroit Lions. I think, as I've said in other shows, that the Lions have one of the deepest rosters in the NFL right now. And that's scary to think that in just 3 short off seasons, that the Lions went from scrapping an entire team. Since 2020's roster, the Lions have moved on from more than 85% of the players on that roster. Let that sink in. They have completely revamped the front office, the back office, the concession stands, the stadium. They're about to get a new training facility. They're going to host an NFL draft in 2024. They've had a plethora of draft picks, and now they've completely revamped their entire roster. I think the ones that have stuck around pretty much reside on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line. So who's going to win? Who's going to lose? I don't think it matters. I think that the Lions are definitely going to put on a bigger show in the second half like they did last week. They're deeper. I think that they'll be able to take the Jags, towards the end of the game, like I predicted last week versus the Giants, that it was going to come down to the third and fourth quarter, and whoever's team is deeper and more ready. And I think the Lions are that team. But win or lose, it doesn't matter. I just want the Lions to come out of the game healthy. I think that people undervalue or underestimate the Jaguars defense, and they shouldn't. This is going to be a team, in my opinion, that's going to make the playoffs this season, and they're going to give some teams some trouble. I think that they're going to make a lot of noise in this, this season. So we do know that tomorrow the Jaguars have not made a decision whether they're going to play their starters. So that'll really change the focus on who wins and who loses. But again, I don't think it really matters. If they put their starters in against our second team, is it really fair? No. But does it give the Lions an opportunity to get better? Hell yeah, it does. So go ahead, play your starters. I want to see the Lions, get in there and get scrappy with their second and third team up against, their starting rotation. I'd love to see it. So let's hope that happens. Which rookie should we look for? Well, apparently we're going to look for all of them tomorrow, except for the ones that are going to be sitting. Chase Cota and Dylan Drummond are high on my list right now. Starling Thomas, still up there, still banging away. And I think between those three definitely have the biggest opportunity to make the roster right now outside of Mohamed Ibrahim. So watching Ibrahim tomorrow, and he's not a rookie, obviously, he's a UDFA. I want to see these guys compete at a high level, but those are the four guys that I would target to watch tomorrow, along with Sorsdahl. Sorsdahl's an intriguing pick by the Detroit Lions. He, in my opinion, I feel like he fell a little bit in the draft board, but he's making his way, and he's been mentored by Penei Sewell. He just moved to the opposite side of the ball, which he's going through some growing pains right now. And we'll see that work out. But, being able to be a utility type player on the offensive line and holding that versatility is exactly what Brad Holmes wants to see. And that's who he likes. He loves versatility. You're seeing it with, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You're seeing it with Brian Branch. You're going to see it with the offensive linemen that they pick up through the draft too. And they want to see guys play, guard and center. They want to see guys be able to play left and right tackle. And it only bodes well for the future. I just wish that we had somebody that on the offensive line that was also our long snapper. If I was a GM and if I was running a team, I wouldn't have a long snapper on the team. I just wouldn't. I'd have one of my offensive linemen that maybe my second or my third string offensive lineman that's suiting up for that game. That's the long snapper. And I know it's easier said than done. Look, it's not easy to snap a ball that far, that accurate behind you. And it is a unique talent. But I have, this thought, I guess, that someone can figure out how to do it. And you add that feather to your cap, and you're making yourself a little bit more money, and you're able to be a gadget guy on teams and maybe make your way onto a roster a little bit easier if you can play offensive line and be the long snapper. But that's just my 2 cents. So what positions do we have for the major camp battles? Well, I still think that there's a big battle in the defensive backs in the secondary. And that's to see if, is it Chase Lucas? Is it Starling Thomas? Who's going to battle the hardest and pick up that last DB spot? Do the Lions keep 10, 11, or 12 DBs this season? We don't know. We're going to see soon. So for my predictions, for the roster, I think I'm going to wait until after the Jaguars game on the Sunday night show, and I'm going to run through another set of predictions as to who I feel deserves those final roster spots and just how many players the Lions will keep at each position. We'll be wrong. We always are every year, but maybe this year we'll be right. We'll see. How is Leve on Wazarike doing? And this is a question that kept popping up this week. The question is a great question. The answer is, I don't know. I've heard nothing but great things on a few articles that I read, listening to Dan through one of the press conferences saying that Levi's back and he's just balling out. He's doing well. The kid loves to play. He's happy to be back on the field. And I didn't get a chance to see him in practice. So I never got my 2 eyes on him to be able to kind of give you my own opinion. And so I think for right now, we just have to take it right from the horse's mouth. And that's Dan Campbell, that Levi's doing well. He's not, suffering from lingering issues. He's in there and he's battling every single day. And he's elevating, what this defensive front is able to do. And this is somebody that we really expected as a rookie to come in and elevate this team. Nobody really knew who he was. I feel like there was a lot of people that had no clue who Levi was. And when the Lions picked him, it was like, oh, God, here we go again. Who is this guy? Levi's a baller. And, when he's healthy and he's able to get in and produce, he's going to make everybody around him that much better. He's somebody that can get back and rush the passer, but he's also a hell of a run stopper. So it's good to have him back. I really hope to see him get in the game, obviously. I'd love to see him, get some reps and to see how he's doing. I'd love to see Vaitai get some reps and Glasgow get some reps. I want to see what these guys got, especially guys coming off injury or guys that have been around the league for a long time. I doubt Glasgow gets in the game, but we'll see tomorrow. Defensive line play, we kind of spoke to that early in the show, or I spoke to that early in the show. These gap assignments, and I went over it on Friday, but the gap assignment has changed. And I'm going to put this thought in your head one more time. So when you're running a single gap, imagine like you take your arms and you put it at a 90, right? So you put one arm straight out in front of this shoulder and this arm straight 90 out, off of this shoulder. And this is the gap that you're responsible for now, right in front of you. This is it. When you're running a gap and a half, you now take this right arm and you go halfway into the other side. So now together with the guy to your left and the guy to your right, you're now covering 180 degrees on either side all the way down the line. So by running a gap and a half, it allows the linebackers, like I said earlier, to have more freedom because they're not having to protect those gaps. They're now protected by those defensive linemen, and their responsibility on the defensive line is to hit those gaps. It doesn't mean that the linebackers aren't going to come up and crash the gaps and have gap responsibility. It just means that they have a little bit more freedom to be able to roam and make plays. So defensive line play, I feel like, is going to be highly elevated this season. And with the way that the Brad Holmes has rebuilt this secondary, Andy keeps calling us a top 10 defense potential. And I'm beginning to wonder if the kid's right. The potential is there. I'm going to stick with top 15, top 16. I think that's the highest they'll reach this season. I've got them pegged as a top 20, and that'll be an excellent comeback from where they were last season. But I don't think the ranking is really going to matter as much as the production is going to matter. And are we going to have game-changing plays, or are we going to have stat-making plays? And the reason why I said that is, and I've said this in other shows before, it's production versus stats. And in my opinion, there's two ways to play the game. If you're going to be a producer, you can still get stats, but you're also going to produce, and that's by owning your assignment. That's by playing well within the scheme. It's by not getting distracted on what's going around you and losing your edge, over committing, allowing things to bounce outside, hitting the wrong gap, run gashes through the middle for 20 yards. We saw all of that last season. For the first 8 weeks or so, Hutchinson was kind of a liability on the left side. There was over 700 yards of rushing offense that ran through his gap or off his edge because he overcommitted or pushed in too far and let things bounce out. I see a difference in Hutch this season, and I saw a slow difference in changing him towards the end of last season, where he started to own up to his assignment and stay controlled in setting his edge. So production versus stats means if you do your assignment well and you're able to produce and push and force the ball and the play over to the other side of the field where the offense doesn't want to go, you are producing the stats for somebody else to get. I had a comment this week that someone said, well, James Houston was cut, and then he comes back and gets eight sacks. Well, Hutchinson wasn't cut, and he had like 9 sacks. So what does the comment really mean? Does stats really mean anything? What's the difference between Hutchinson and Houston? I would say that there's a big difference. There's a big difference where they were taken. There's a big difference with how much their contract is. And Hutchinson's, probably a much better player overall. Houston's more of a specialist. And if stats are the only way you're going to measure somebody, then I wouldn't pick either one of the guys. There's other guys in the NFL that get way more stats and have much better seasons stat-wise. But that doesn't mean that they're producing. The difference for me is this. You can go and have 20 sacks in a season. I think that would be incredible. It's rarely ever been done. But if you're getting 20 sacks and they're all coming in the fourth quarter and your team's losing by 20 points every time, what do those stats mean? Jack squat. They don't mean anything. So if you're going to produce and you're going to get the stats by, shutting down a third down, getting the ball, turned over to the offense late in the fourth quarter where you can go in and kneel it and take the win, those are game-changing production type plays. So for me, it's production versus stats. I want to see the guys produce and not so much worry about the stats. The stats will come. If everybody's producing, everyone's going to get their hands on the ball. Everyone's going to have fun and celebrate together. And the goal is to win unselfishly. You've got to play unselfishly. So the defensive line play for this season, if I were to have a goal, it would be unselfish play. And it would be production versus stats. And again, we'll throw in the beehive mentality that, they're all working together as worker bees, trying to produce for everybody to the left or to the right of them. If that can happen, this defense has no limits, no bounds. They will be a top 10, if not better. And I think that we've got the coaching staff to do it. I think that we've got the players to do it. They've got the right culture in place, the right fit. So things are exciting for once in Allen Park and Ford Field, and it's going to be a great season. A couple other questions that I wanted to get to that were coming in this week. We already answered that one. Beehive, we already answered that. Yeah, what are my way too early picks on the roster prior to week 2's game? I really can't give that because they're going to be sitting a lot of the starters, and which, I mean, that tells you who's going to be a starter, but we just don't know right now. Without having an honest roster, game roster, it's kind of tough to figure out. But I'm going to do that on Sunday. Well, I think that's it for tonight, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I wish Andy would have been here tonight and been able to manage all of the chats that were coming in. But I want to say thanks. Everyone's been doing a great job in pumping up the comments and giving us a lot of good feedback. Stay active in the chats. Keep posting your links. Let's keep it all about the Detroit Lions. Of course, we'll throw out our Villain Squad store to you guys so you can get some great discounts and enjoy some of the new gear that we're dropping, so you guys can hit the stadium in style. And look, man, we're all going to be celebrating at the end of the season one way or the other, and I think it's going to be an exciting ride. I really do. So I want to finish tonight with something that I said the other day, and it means a lot. That this season is different for this Detroit Lions team for many reasons, but I think that the one constant is the same old Lions fans are starting to quiet down. They're starting to disappear. They're not rearing their ugly heads as often. 20 plus years of going to these games, and as far back as my memory goes, being a Detroit Lions fan, I've had my fair share of moments of not being happy with the team. But every single season, we always would jump back up and get right behind them and hope that we were going to have a great season. Right now, this team is thriving off of the energy that is coming from the fans from around the world. And that energy has spilled over into season tickets being sold out for the first time ever in Detroit Lions history. So the message is simple. Keep the comments flowing. Keep pumping up the Detroit Lions. Keep showing them how much, this season means to you as a fan, and how much it means, to you to see them succeed. This is just one avenue that we get to celebrate through our lifetime, that we don't get to participate in. And that's just being a fan of a professional franchise. So it doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do us any good, to bash them all the time. And being in the media or running a podcast or whatever, running a page, whatever you're doing. Yeah, I mean, there's certain points where you have to tell the truth. You have to be transparent. You have to be honest about things, and that's okay too. But at the end of the day, it's let's get behind these guys and let's show them how much we care about this team, and that the One Pride family is who we say we are, and they're gonna feel it, and that's what's gonna drive them to succeed this season. Get behind them. You know what? They have a bad quarter, so what? Get behind them. They got a bad half, so what? Get behind them. They have a bad game, so what? Get behind them. Keep the train moving forward. It's One Pride. Forward down the field, and we're going to have a hell of a great season, guys. That's how I'm going to finish the podcast. Hope you all have a great night. We'll see y'all on Sunday, and we'll definitely be watching the game tomorrow. All right, y'all. Take care.